Lester, Wushu engineer. So I'm going to try a slightly more informal format for this video. I have done a couple of investigations into knife-proof, stab-proof armor. In particular, there's one relatively long video that I did, an investigation into more modern forms of stab and slash protection. So you can go and check that video out for more context. As a result of that video, I found that there was really only one type of armor that was available as stab and knife-proof armor that, at least on a budget, that was actually capable of doing the job. And that was a type of armor made out of very thin plates of manganese steel. So very, very hard steel, very thin. And typically the plates were, well, at least in this format, in the format for the armor that we actually are selling on our Wushu workshop website. They're riveted together into a front and back sheet. So there is flexibility in the sheet because the rivets are not all tight, so it allows a little bit of flex. But in addition, the manganese steel itself is very flexible and can bend. Essentially, it's like a type of full plate with a little bit more flexibility in it. It makes it quite bulky and not easy to put on and take off. It's essentially just held in place by big Velcro straps. So I ended up getting another one of these knife-proof vests, the type that we sell on our store. And the reason I got one is because I kind of took the last one apart during some of the tests that I did for the knife and stab-proof armor testing video. And I wanted to give this a second chance, but not as it is. Because as it is, as you can tell, it's functional, it gets the job done, but it's extremely bulky. Partly because mostly to do with the way that it's constructed. So what I've decided to do is to get another one of these vests, take it apart, take the individual manganese steel plates out and cut them and produce a new set of what you could call modern brigandine. And I say modern because of the steel that's used, and also because of the fact that this thickness of steel, while extremely effective in terms of knife and stab type threats in modern times, would probably not have been sufficient in medieval times with the type of battlefield weapons that they were facing at those times. It'd be interesting to do some tests to find out exactly how resistant it would be against those types of weapons, but that's not what this video is about. This video is really about me modifying this completely to refabricate a new type of brigandine armor out of the plates. So I just wanted to show you how this looks before I start tearing it to pieces, and the reason why I want to tear it to pieces and reconstruct it. So this could be the basis of an idea for somebody else out there who wants to wear this type of armor, but who doesn't want to wear something that is as bulky and obvious as this, wants something a little bit more covert. So I wasn't really very happy with that, but I was very happy with the material, the manganese steel. I did a bit of research into that type of steel and its availability and its cost, and as with many things in this life, it's non-intuitive, because in actual fact I found that, at least in the investigations that I did, to try and get hold of that manganese steel and work it myself, in other words to get hold of rolls or sheets of it, was actually far more expensive, significantly more expensive than actually buying the vests themselves and dismantling them. So I bought a vest from our supplier and I dismantled it. And for the front part of the vest, I cut the large, almost square steel plate into strips. And I used as a very broad basis 15th century brigandine armour designs, the way that the plates were laid out and cut and then bound within fabric. And typically those, or often I should say, those are riveted in place between fabric layers or other layers of material. But they were also, in some cases, they were also glued in place. And I used a gluing method, and I glued it between sheets of nylon fabric.
So this is how I'm laying the pieces of steel out, glued in with a polyurethane adhesive. Just overlaying them in particular order. These are some of the completed pieces. As you can see, there's a certain amount of flexibility built into it. In this case, I used the plates cut into smaller strips, as you may be able to see in the glued section here. I don't know how much of an advantage that is. That does provide a certain amount of flexibility, but not much over the original. So that may just have been a lot of extra work for nothing. The main plates are constrained on both sides. This allows bending both sides and a little bit of up and down movement as well. This is the back plate. Same kind of configuration, except with the back plate I chose not to cut the armor plates into smaller strips. I left them as larger plates, and I think because in terms of flexibility on the back plate, there's not as much flexibility required. That was my reasoning. As you can see, same kind of configuration, allowing bending both ways, and a little bit of movement, a little bit of bending allowed that way as well, and a certain amount that way, but quite limited.
Now, there are a lot of other videos on YouTube explaining the historical context and looking at historical examples, how they functioned and how effective they were. A whole bunch of resources. Matt Easton from Schola Gladiatoria speaks about them. Metatron speaks about them. I think Shadiversity has spoken about them. Todd of Todd's Workshop has spoken about them and done testing with them, with brigandine. So I'm not going to get into any of that detail. I'm no historical expert. But what I enjoy is taking historical ideas and modernizing them. So that's what I've tried to do here. I had a tactical vest that I bought for another project. It's just a cheap tactical vest, I think made for airsoft gaming. And I built the modern brigandine into that tactical vest. So now it's in a far more usable format. It can just be slipped on like a normal garment. There are pros and cons to it, as I'll discuss later in the video. But all in all, I'm actually quite happy with the final product. And I'll go into some more explanation now with some more video clips. Well, I've tested the plates, the armor plates, in a previous video. If you want to have a look at those official tests where I used a swinging pendulum with a blade attached, go and check out that particular video. And during that video, the plates survived all of the tests that I did without being penetrated at all. So I've got a test piece using strips of those plates as I've used in the tactical vest, and I've got this really terrible thing that I constructed to see what how it performs with some more destructive tests, which is essentially just an old knife blade that I've epoxied into a wooden sort of club. So we'll see how this does. So no penetration. That wasn't actually the plate that it penetrated through, it slid off the top. So that just penetrated the nylon. Again, it slid off and penetrated the nylon on the other side and went into the wood base. Again, slid off. Slid off again. Slid off again. So there's some significant energy that I'm putting into those swings. I'm going to have to reset that. I've stuck it back on. I'm going to really try to penetrate now. So that did not penetrate, actually went off the side again, and I'm going to have to reset it. As it turns out, my mounting system is failing before the armor does. So we'll try, we'll probably only get one more test out of it. I'll try one more time. Okay, finally got through. And the failure point was at the joint where it slipped between plates. Don't know if you can see the edge damage. You'll be able to see it there. Edge damage and the tip damage that was incurred during that series of tests. It's blunted the tip and taken a little bite out of the edge of the knife blade. So this is the armor test piece after the tests. As you can see, all of the other test the points at which it appeared as though the armor had been penetrated, they were just glancing blows that shaved the bounding nylon off and deflected the blade to the sides. The one penetration through the middle was a little bit unfair. It didn't penetrate the plates themselves. Didn't penetrate the plates themselves, but just slipped in between them. And that's a little bit unfair because mechanically this thing wasn't mounted very well. The test piece was not mounted very well, which meant that it could, and it was mounted against a foam block, which meant that it could actually twist like that to allow the blade to pass through. In the actual armor itself, because these plates form part of a much larger plate that will, which itself is bound to the rest of the armor, it will actually prevent that kind of twisting from occurring. So far less likely that a blade would penetrate between the plates. And I might also add that there was a significant amount of energy that went into that as well.
hardly the kind of energy that you'd expect from a handheld knife. So quite interesting. I think quite an interesting result. No penetration at all of the plates themselves. So I'm quite pleased with the way that it turned out. There were some problems in the design, although the features that I included in terms of having the plates in essentially like rows that can slide across each other allows a certain amount of flexibility that way. So can actually fold the parts of the garment can actually fold up. Actually cutting the segments into strips did provide a certain amount of additional flexibility, and I think as the glue starts degrading at the joints, which is not necessarily a bad thing because it will only degrade so far and then it will essentially stabilize because it's being sandwiched between layers of nylon fabric. As it starts breaking down at the joints, it will become more flexible. So it will essentially work itself into a more flexible kind of plate. All of the plates are overlapping, including the strips. So there are no real gaps, and that includes the major articulations here. These are all overlapping. At the zip, one of the set of plates actually sits underneath the other. I'm going to hold it up here. You'll see slots underneath, so they're overlapping, which means that there aren't any gaps in the armor here either. However, I didn't have enough material to actually complete the overlapping plates all the way to the top of the zip. So there is a little section here that is exposed. In addition, of course, the sides are exposed, so there are no side plates at the moment. And if I open up the back plates only go up to here, and then there's a section at the top that is exposed. Now at some stage in the future when I get more material, I might complete that. I might have side plates, and I might not, because having side plates is going to restrict a lot of mobility wearing this tactical vest. But I might. I'd certainly want to complete the armoring on the back all the way to the top, and perhaps fill in this section here. But that may be all that I decide to do with it. It's quite flexible. It's not terribly light, but it's also not exceedingly heavy either. So we'll see how heavy this is. So that's 2.77 kilograms. 2.77. Not altogether heavy, also not incredibly light. Yeah, I'm fairly pleased with it, and I think it's a lot more functional than in its original format. Certainly functional enough to just slip on, even if the zipper is not done at the front. I can still operate, and it does provide a fair amount of protection.
doing the zipper up is a little awkward. It does require a little bit of, let's say, yoga positioning in order to keep the place together long enough for you to actually do the zip up. So what I might do in the future is actually have a set of latching buckles that maybe 2 or 3 latching buckles across the front there to allow for fast closing of the front of the armor. But yeah, as I said, just wearing it with the zipper undone is not ideal, but it does provide a fair amount of protection. And of course, depending on how you move and how you position yourself, you can interpose plates that are essentially going to be proof against most edged weapons and actually provide you a significant amount of protection against impact-based weapons as well. So yeah, I thought this was quite a cool project. I'm going to have it hanging up in my wardrobe for emergency koala bear attacks. Owls typically just keep me awake at night with their groaning and growling. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun building it. Now it's going to hang up in my wardrobe, ready to use if I ever want to slip it on and go and do something with it. And yeah, I'll see you all again next time. Cheers.